Hello all, a Nice Toe here, and today we're going to be looking at the Kizer Tanto. This is time for a review. I will save you some time and say that I really do like this knife. Though there are a little bit of peculiarities that we will talk about. But overall, I definitely think it's a really good knife. And if that's all you want to see, I guess that's all. Like, subscribe, and comment down below if you want to help the channel. I would greatly appreciate it. Share my videos, the etc, etc, etc. Get that out of the way real early. I'm still trying to grow. I'm a new channel. I'm hoping I can provide some value to the community. Maybe decent in-depth reviews. Maybe aggregate some data and stuff like that. I'm going to be making some shorts that ask questions, because I want to see what people's answers are. Yeah. Get back to the review, though, of course. Kizer Tanto. We have Kizer's micarta, which is always pretty darn... Why is there hair on there? Kizer's micarta, which is always pretty darn great. We have 154 cm button lock, designed by Damn Designs. That's their logo right there. And you can certainly see it. The handle shape, the blade shape, the pivot. It's all very reminiscent if you have ever seen anything from them. Let's get to specs, I should say. This blade is very hard to measure. If you go to the top of this, the furthest point on this one, it's about 3 1/4 blade length. And that's also where the plunge grind is. So that's what I'm going to measure to. I'm going to measure to here. I mean, this is choil and that's past the plunge. So I'm just going to call it that. I mean, if you really want to be nitpicky, you can call it all the way back to here. It's 3 3/4 almost. So it seems a lot bigger, but I wouldn't consider it that big of a knife. Overall, a little over 8 inches. The pocket clip does stick out a little bit, and that's at 8 1/8, so that's kind of where you're at there. Handle length is about 4 7/8 or 5 inches to the pocket clip again. Again, measuring from this area. Let's make some comparisons. I think that'll help with this knife, because again, there are a number of... This sticks out, this has a sphere angle on it. Conspirator for the full size, and Elementum for the small. It's bigger than both. It's pretty close to the Conspirator. In actual functional blade length, you're tiny bit shorter than the Conspirator because of this big choil, but you're pretty darn close in overall blade length. It does, however, have more handle, mostly again because of this giant angle up here. So it's not necessarily the most space-saving in that sense. It has a big presence. Though, if you're used to carrying anything like a Spyderco or something, it's certainly not unreasonable. It's honestly not that thick. It's got heavy chamfers on either side, so it almost feels contoured. It's not, but it almost feels it. I'd say it's probably about as thick as the Conspirator, if you take a look at it. But again, it is tall, and it's kind of got a weird angle going with the front piece. Get in my hands. Yeah, it's a little taller. Sure, let's just go with that. Moving on. Weight, 4 ounces. So, not an ounce an inch. It's got full steel liners. They have been milled out. I don't know if you can see in there. It's actually pretty tight in there. Can we see? Can we get a good look? Yeah, there we go. Right there. But full steel liners, button lock. It's got some weight to it. It's not unreasonable. Where are the... There we go. This should be the T8 in this one. It is. T8 pivot. T8 body screw. T6 pocket clip screw. I prefer T8 all around, but the things holding this knife together, the things you're going to have to actually interact with, because the clip is not reversible, which is a little bit of a shame considering it is a button lock, but it's not. So you won't really have to interact with it. So the only things you're going to be messing with would be that screw and the pivot there, and they're both T8. So, and that's falling over there. Let us get how thick this thing is. Almost 500 thousandths, so half an inch on the dot almost. I'm going to call that 125 thousandths on the blade stock, not too thick. And behind the edge, this is of course a dual ground, compound ground, Tanto. It's thicker up here. This is a hollow back here, so in the hollow. Wow, we're really talking about 12 thousandths behind the edge. I'm going to call it 12 thousandths. It's thin. It's real thin. Behind the edge of the flat up here, 15 thousandths. It's thin up here. This is a thin, slicey blade, and it cuts. There is no doubt about that. It cuts, and this one came quite sharp. I believe that's the end of the specs, so let's just take a quick overview of the knife and get to my thoughts and experience. I love the blade shape. I do. I like that swooping down, drop point, Tanto kind of thing. Kizer's logo is fine. I still kind of wish they just put the logo and not their name. 154 cm is fine. The logo of the maker is fine. I wish that was smaller down there. The only thing that I really have a problem with is Kizer really likes putting model numbers and names on their knives. They don't need to be there. Just that would be much nicer. It was over there. Blade steel is 154 cm, which I have no problem with. That's a good sort of... Honestly, it's more in the mid-range than it is the budget range. And this kind of knife applies. So I don't have a problem. And Kizer does good 154 cm. Plunge grind stops here. You have tons of life. You have all the life in the world to sharpen. And the button lock actually locks underneath, completely underneath the flipper tab. So it's inside the blade tang and nowhere, anywhere, and nothing is going to cause you a problem for anywhere around here. And that's an interesting one. The flipper tab actually overtakes the entire button and it locks inside there. Maybe that adds some strength or something when it's closed. I don't know. I don't know if I've ever seen too many button locks do that. Even flipper button locks like the Conspirator. Oh yeah, I guess it is doing that. You know, I've never really thought about it. The flipper ones overtake and cover up the entire button in some cases. Never really thought about that. This one just does it a lot. Blade is sharp, and it has remained sharp. I haven't used it a ton, but I have carried it. You can see a little bit of the wear that I managed to not get off there. It'll probably come off. Moving on to the pivot, I like this kind of bolt out style pivot. I wish they kind of shaped the other side too. They didn't. It's not a huge deal. We come to the first of the kind of issues with this knife, and that is the design of the flipper tab. The only jimping on the flipper tab is right here. It's extremely minimal. It doesn't do anything. But the flipper tab is soft and at this angle. Whereas if it was straight up and down, or even just jimped up here, you'd have more grip. It is a little slippy. I do find myself slipping off of it. Now, the way I found the best way, two ways to deploy this knife is you can either if you're not doing it into a table, you can light switch it, very reliable. Or you can just sort of sit your finger up here and slide it back along the spine and handle. The other thing is, while I like a little bit of button stick on my budget button locks, this one has a good bit. I don't think I've ever actually had any other Kizer button locks, so I have nothing to compare it to. But it's a little more stick than I would like, and it doesn't seem to be going away. That said, the more stick, the less likely it's going to be that it fails on you, so if you can live with that, that's not really a problem. And there's no real stick when you deploy it with the button. So it's just the act of it lodging in on the flip for some reason. Deployment methods are the button and the flipper. They're right next to each other. There is jimping on this knife. I don't know if it's because of the coating or if they rounded it off. It doesn't provide a ton of traction, but it's really close to being the good kind of jimping, so it does provide some actual traction. So I'm okay with it, especially for the price. The micarta is, as always, from Kizer, very nice to the feel, well finished, well executed, consistent. In this case, they have a micarta backspacer with a hidden lanyard post kind of thing milled into the micarta, which is kind of nice. The ergos on this knife it's a taller handle, but they're really good. They're really comfortable. I suppose the Gorilla Grip is the weaker point for my hands because it's a little bit tall for that when you really want to squeeze into it. But it's still not terrible. And up here where I would probably be doing the Gorilla Grip more because I don't want no room from the choil is arguably more comfortable. Big forward finger choil. Roomy as heck. You're not going to have trouble fitting in there. And again, basic grips, super comfortable. If you have bigger hands, it'd probably be better than mine, but this is where it falters a little bit. The pivot's also Is it the pivot? No, the pivot's not tight. There's a decent amount of pressure from the button. But I've noticed the occasional, like that. It likes to get hung up right here. I think that might just be mine. Might be just something I have to adjust. It's probably from the pivot touching the blade. There might be some grime or something on there. I wouldn't be too worried about that. To the pocket clip, pretty standard for Kizer. It does stick off super deep carry. Dog. You have a flat at the end of the clip. I don't like flats at the end of the clip. They just typically make things a little bit more of a pain in the butt. Just remove that and you have a continuous rise. It's fine. Clip works other than that. It's got good retention. I had no problem with it, really. Just a little in and out of the pockets, maybe. Also, as details go, you can see the other side of the button lock right there. I don't know why, but I kind of like that. Honestly, there's not much else to be said about this knife because it's just a decent knife, and Kizer does... It's a really good knife for the price of about $80. That's what it is. I do wish I could put it in the budget territory of being $75 or less, but 154 cm is, again, not necessarily the standard budget steel. It's sort of a lower mid-grade steel. So I'm not really angry about it. I like the knife. I like the design. The execution is pretty good. I'll have to experience some more Kizer button locks to say whether they need to adjust the thing or something, because if there's a lot of ones with lock stick or something like that, that might be an issue, but it's just a bit much on this one, so lock stick, watch out for. Other than that, this is a super simple, straightforward knife. And a solid button lock that cuts and really does perform. It gives you access to the tip because of that drop in the blade. It gives you a secondary tip, like for a Tanto. This is an Americanized Tanto where it's two straight edges, hard change there. Yeah, this is a really good knife. I don't know. I know it's been out for a while, so I'm definitely late to the game. I have a YouTube channel that's like 2 months old or something like that. Barely. I would recommend this one. It may be discontinued, but you can definitely still find them. I'm going to link them down in the description, at least one of them. Probably, I'll try to do double links. This is a good knife. That's everything. Done. See you next time, guys.